welcome to the studio. Thank you
okay.
for helping me get the lighting
We're working on it.
better.
We're working on
We're
it.
ordering some more parts, some new lights, some new soft boxes. Colin, Leibold.
Leibold, yeah.
Leibold. Colin Leibold at Leibold Media has been my photographer and videographer for a few years now. And I wanted to get him in here and help me with the studio a little bit so we can bring higher quality videos to you guys, but also kind of just pick his brain of photography, real estate photography, you know, the business that is kind of similar to ours, of oversaturated with a lot of people who will do it for a lot less money.
Sure.
So kind of let's start with a super softball one of like, how'd you get into photography and videography?
I grew up around a mom that wanted to take photos of everything. So that was me being the subject, and my brother, we were constantly being photographed, and, you know, to the point of exhaustion and annoyance. I don't know if anybody else has had parents like that, but it can be exhausting at times.
Is your mom in any photo?
She's a nurse. She does it for fun. And
No, I mean like...
Oh, is she in any
like
photos?
our family photos? Like you'll rarely see my mom because she's the one always taking it, and she was like afraid of the camera per se.
She's tough in front of the camera, meaning like she always talks, you know, like, oh, I don't like my hair, I don't look good, and all this and stuff. And so I've learned to, you know, I deal with people all the time that have, you know, kind of self-image issues as well. So it's taught me how to like walk people through that process. And yeah, because it can be nerve-wracking. I mean, I'm in the same way, right? We're all probably the same way. When I'm behind the camera, it's like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm not stressed, but this person obviously is.
Yeah.
And then I go put myself in front of the camera, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a little, it's a little nerve-wracking.
That is a good segue, because me being extremely extroverted, it doesn't bother me whatsoever.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so we're in photography, videography.
Sure.
You know, like what is like coaxing the subject, we'll say, is it like in front of the camera to act more natural? Like what's one of the hardest things doing this?
Yeah, and I mean, if you've been doing it for a long time, you kind of learn the reps and you know what works and what doesn't because you've done the back and forth. You've been in the process of getting a photo or video made, and then you look at it and then you critique it.
Yeah.
And then you work with your team, your video photo team, to get that better. But, you know, as far as first-time agents and people, especially in video, it seems like photo's not as generally difficult to get people to be more comfortable, especially if you're shooting with an iPhone. Everyone loves the iPhone.
You've been taking many selfies.
It's not, you know, it's not intimidating as much as like a big camera gear setup.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, you know, when we're reading the first script, getting them on camera for the first time, they're generally nervous, and you know, as soon as the camera turns on, they turn into a different person. They close up, they're stiff. So a lot of it is the process of just getting people to, you know, be comfortable in their skin. Don't worry so much about the camera. Film is cheap. We can take, you know, our time to get through this, and we just want to bring you, the subject, your real personality out in the photo and in the video. And for some people that clicks by the end of the day. Some people it takes a few times. Some people never do it. But the reps are really what kind of is important, and just trying to get people to be like, hey, you're having a conversation with the other side of the camera, which is social media. Well, think of it as like you're talking to a client sitting right here, a potential client. Like, how would you talk to them? Yeah. So you kind of try and give them, you know, imagine what that would feel like. Yeah. Put yourself in that place. Don't worry about the camera. Worry about who are you talking to, and be yourself. Yeah. And that's generally what seems to work for me with my clients, is getting them comfortable with being themselves on camera and being a little more playful. And yeah, we've got a script maybe, but like, hey, let's do a take where you embellish it a little bit. Or like, how would you say that in your words? Maybe it looked good on paper when we were writing it out, but when you're saying it, it feels clunky, it feels scripted. Okay, well, it is scripted. So how would you then say it?
So if someone is going to be hiring a photographer, videographer, they're going to be hiring you, like, what is the prep work that you've seen like clients do that like helps make the process easier for you, and then for the person who's behind the camera, it turns out to be a better product faster?
Yeah, I mean, you shared a podcast with me this morning that was kind of leans into organically what I've realized over the years, but people who are doing this bigger and better than us, maybe in the YouTube space.
Oh, the Tom Ferry one that I was talking
about. Right,
yeah, okay.
And to me, it always comes back to like, well, go back to the beginning. Like, what is the purpose of this? Like, you're doing it obviously for the sale of the property you're doing. I mean, I think that's the first thought maybe that comes into your head. But really, if you go further back, it's marketing for the future of your company, your brand. So you want to think about the bigger picture. Like, why are you doing this? Like, well, I want to communicate that I'm a real estate agent, that I'm approachable, that, you know, this is who I am. Okay, so you want to communicate your brand. So you have to kind of know, well, who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So having those kind of questions in the back of your head, and then like, what's the goal? Is it to reach more people in your community? If that's so, how do you do that? Do you utilize this marketing to basically be the first face that comes across someone's mind? I know your brand is different than every other real estate brand, even though you all sell houses, you sell, you know, that transaction, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully you're all good at it. You know, I'm sure there's some that are much better than others.
Yeah.
But that's one piece of the puzzle, right? Like, you want to be, you know, my dad was in real estate for 30 years in Minneapolis, where I grew up. So I've kind of got some intuition or notes from him along the way too, about just, he's like, you know, I'm not the guy selling all the biggest houses in town, but like, I get a lot of work because I'm just a real person. I care about my clients. I want to make sure that they're, you know, that I can take care of everything for them and make them feel at peace, because a lot of people are stressed out about it. And so my job is to really kind of like humanize that transaction, because I know things that they're not going to know, with the contracts and all the paperwork and all the inspections and things that, you know, as a first-time home buyer, you might not know any of that stuff. With YouTube now, you can do a little more research.
Yeah, there's a lot of research for it, but
it didn't exist back then.
No, it didn't at all.
So this is obviously kind of more of an old school approach to that. But I don't know if that answered your question entirely.
The question was, like, what can your clients do to help prepare to make the video, the content that they're creating, like the best and most efficient of their time, everybody's time?
Yeah, I mean, again, getting back to that beginning of like, what is your brand? Who are you in this, you know, space? How do you differentiate yourself? So you want your media to kind of portray you, and that will evolve over time, you know. But if you have like, hey, I'm a sport coat guy, I wear sport coats every day. Well, then wear those in your videos and your photos. Make sure that that's put out there. If you're a surfer and you like to, you know, sell houses at the beach, maybe interject some of that into the messaging. And then just like consistency, you know, and doing it over and over and over, and knowing that like what I did yesterday is not going to be as good as what I do tomorrow and the next day. So don't look back and judge yourself, or like stop because you made one wrong bad video, or you know, like a photo you took. Well, it's like, well, like I said, film is cheap and time goes on. So just get out there and do it again. And
I think another one that is good too is to realize that your true friends, you know, clients who've had a good experience with you, whether you're talking real estate or you're talking photography, like they're gonna watch through the bad stuff, you know, like, and they're gonna get like the quality content that you're putting out, and they'll watch your evolution get better. You know, so it's like ignoring that, like, if you don't start here knowing that like it's not gonna be great, you know, it will never get to here. So it's sticking to it that like helps a lot.
Yeah. I mean, your content has come a long way, and it's going to continue to get better. But the more you do the process, the less weight it holds over you, I guess, right? Obviously, you still have to do the work, and it costs money and it costs time, and so with those metrics, you know, being very real, you also want to make sure that, you know, you have a kind of a mission statement for like, this is the long game, this is the long run. I'm not going to judge it by one video or one invoice paid. Like, did I get ROI on that one invoice right away? Well, almost surely no, because it's a long game. And so, but if you're like, I'm going to be in this business for a while, I want to service this, you know, community really well, I want to bring in people to this community. So just having that baseline for me, in my business, it was the day it transformed for me. And I started my career late. I'm self-taught. You know, I grew up around cameras and all that stuff. Grew up loving art in school, but didn't go to school for it. And one day I woke up and I was miserable, and I was like, okay, I want to do something I love, and I like this camera thing. Let me see.
We're not good enough to be pro surfers, unfortunately.
Time has passed.
Come on, man.
I've taken photos of Kelly Slater and some of his friends, so that's about as close as I'm going to get to that dream. But it's kind of nice to be just, you know, another guy in the water and not have that pressure of like
competing and making it work.
But so what I was getting to was, for me, and this is kind of where you're asking, like, what can we do to be more prepared? And for me, we're always learning. There's always new gear. There's always new things. Like, I have good days and I have not so great days, you know, but I'm still putting out content and I'm trying my best all the time. You know, you might wake up on the wrong side of the bed one day and like That's okay.
Pretty much.
But when I woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to become known as an Encintas-based photographer, like I had an identity moment, and that foundational seed that I planted in my head has been growing ever since that time. And everything in my life now, you know, the success I have in my business is based upon that one thought, that one thing I said to myself. It's all from that.
You know, and looking at your social media, it's very apparent because of the, you know, the kids jumping off the cliffs at Beacons, you know, at high tide, or, you know, like the magazine covers that you've gotten for the Savage sunsets, you know, like stuff like that, that, you know, you've taken. And yeah, if looking at what you've produced to create your brand identity, it is like very Encinitas Leucadia.
And none of it's chasing, you know, specific trends or I need X amount of followers or this. It's literally just trusting the process, doing first and foremost the work for me that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And then catching clients along the path, you know, that see me for who I am.
Yeah.
Like my work, like who I am, how I show up. Because there's a million photographers out there. There's a million videographers out there. I'm not trying to be everybody's photographer or everybody's videographer. I only have so many hours in the day, so I can't be working for everybody, nor do I want to. So, and if you don't want to work with me or you work with me once, you don't like it, like water under the bridge for me. There's somebody else, you know, next in line that's going to be a better alignment for me, and likewise. So I just keep trying to put out my best content and hope that, you know, the people I work with are in alignment with that. And I am getting clients now that are more repeat customers, and for me that feels better. I'd like to work with the same people and over. But again, I'm not, you know, I won't be upset if somebody that I'm working with goes a different direction either, because people want different trends, they've got different budgets.
Speaking of that, like what are you seeing in like the trends of like your repeat clients? Are they like coming to you of like, I saw this on the internet and I want to repeat it? Or are you bringing some ideas of like, hey, there's new camera angles?
Sure.
Because like, I don't know if it's died out, but like the Twilight photos were super popular for a really long time. I personally, like, unless you got really cool landscaping or like the ocean view or something like that, I don't think the Twilight photos are...
Not every house needs Twilight.
But like for a while, it seemed like everybody had Twilight photos.
Yeah. And they, I mean, trust me, I love shooting sunsets. I love Twilight images. They're beautiful. But again, it really does put a light on the architecture and the landscaping. And if you don't have those dialed in, it's not necessarily that it's bad. It just doesn't, it's not like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, and so not every property requires it.
Yeah.
Now,
so what trends are you seeing, or what seems to be like popular, and like, are you trying to push that towards your clients, or are your clients bringing the ideas to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, with photography, you know, I do a lot of property shoots now, and I've been putting a lot more effort into, you know, kind of elevating my skill set, and I'm always trying new things, and what works for one property works for a different property. As far as for me, the photo wise, interesting, because I feel like the video trends and the video space specifically, since I got into it 7-8 years ago now, I mean, it changes so fast. Yeah. Right? Like Instagram trends and Reels and TikTok, which I don't do TikTok, but I know it's a thing. I've chosen to stick with Instagram just because it's enough for me to already chew on that. So trends, in video, I'd say it's tough to chase trends. I would I guess avoid chasing what, you know, one other person did and then everybody else is copying, unless you're like right there at the beginning. But if you're like a month late on a trend, in my opinion, you're just you've lost. I don't know, the sex appeal of that is like already passed. Yeah,
you've missed the window.
Right. And I don't love trends. They're funny when you see something original for the first time. It's like, oh yeah, I like that, and then people copy it. Yeah. It's like, do you want to be the band or do you want to be the cover band? Right.
It's good.
Like the cover band's not going to be known for very long. You're not going to remember the cover band.
No.
But you're going to remember the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember the Hot Rocks cover band that plays at Belly Up every, you know, once a year. So that's an analogy I just came up with, but I think it's very, very useful, is like, be a leader as much as you can in your own branding and stick with that and take chances and try new things. If you find something that works for you and a style, like I work with some clients that have a very specific, like, we want to do this video this way. And it's a lot more work on our end in the moment because it's a lot of off the cuff. And like, we're trying to figure stuff out as we're going. But the videos come out really fun and playful, and They're tough to film because everyone's kind of stressed out, but the actual edits come out really cool and they're all original. And I really like that process of making something unique.
We're going to be driving around on our next one a little bit more after listening to that podcast, talking it through. Like, I want to take some moves and some changes in some videos. So actually, probably that video will come out before this podcast will. But it's going to be. I want to start doing things like you said to illuminate like my personality more. Of you get trapped in that idea of like I'm selling this house, but it's like even when I talk to my clients, it's the house is great and it needs to meet minimum criteria.
Sure.
But there's so many things that like you can't change. Like you're not going to change the neighborhood. You're not going to change the schools. You're not going to change how close, X thing is that you like to do. Again, if you like to surf, if you're in Ramona, that's a commitment to be a surfer and live in Ramona. So it's like, what is the lifestyle for the area that you're buying in and like the restaurants and the activities? And so that's something that is I try to bring out that authenticity in myself.
I mean, we've talked about that a few times, and I feel like you're already in alignment with that. With I want to sell, like if I'm going to sell a house by the beach, I'm going to talk about surfing because that's what I like. And not all of your clients are surfers, but I would imagine the ones that are can connect with you on another level where you could say, hey, this house is by the beach and the lifestyle is what it's
the farmer's market, the schools, all the other things.
I live in a small apartment. It's nothing spectacular, but I live in a great community. I live 3 blocks from the beach, and I have an avocado tree, and I have a little garden. So outside of my bedroom, area, like that's where my life really begins.
When we're done, I got to show you.
So the home
how
is
big the avocado tree is that I got from your.
And
house.
we live in San Diego. There are a million gorgeous, multi-million-dollar properties of various sizes and locations.
Yeah.
And architectural masterpieces. Some of the best in Southern California. So there's no argue that there's beautiful homes there that need to be highlighted and really shown in the best light. But not every property is that mansion. Probably a majority of them that people are actually buying that we are hanging out with, are smaller homes, or they're something needs to be fixed up. And so you really do want to sell that lifestyle. Like what is the community that you're buying into? Because at the end of the day, the house is the house. It's either going to fall apart or you're going to fix it up or you're going to sell it. But like, what are you going to do while you're there?
Yeah.
And that, what communities are you interacting with lifestyle segments of, whether that's outdoors or nightlife or foodies, parks, so there's different, families obviously is a whole sector.
Yeah.
If you're military, maybe you need to be in Oceanside or down south. So there's things you can kind of really highlight within each neighborhood that the home is in that I think is important.
So besides like the neighborhood and the lifestyle, like for say specifically the house itself, because think of like say Kobe Drive that we sold a little while ago, needed work. It was in an average neighborhood. The house needed a lot of work to be put into it. It wasn't staged. Like what should you do? What would we do differently to kind of illuminate Kobe Drive? Like a house that needs work, it's dated, it's a little dirty. How do you make those properties pop?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to make that property pop in my personal, visual. So you're selling more of the potential. Obviously, the land is maybe even if a house is like what you would consider to be a teardown, or a really heavy remodel, like bare bones, rebuild. You're selling like what are the locations? Okay, what are we close to? What's the lifestyle that you can have? Other people in this community are already enjoying.
Yeah.
And the house isn't maybe necessarily a showstopper by any means. Like you said, it needs a lot of work. So I think, focusing on that lifestyle stuff is really important. And then just communicating the, kind of potential to build your dream, It's like, hey, this isn't necessarily a blank piece of land, but like you could envision it like that. So maybe selling that story a little bit.
So even minimize like the interior photos and videos and like expanding more on other opportunities.
I think if the house isn't
visually appealing.
Well, you walk into it and you're like, okay, it needs work.
Yeah.
You can doctor it up with, beautiful photography as much as you want, but if it's, like you said, it's unstaged, that walls aren't painted, there's stains on the carpet, whatever. Like, well, what are you gonna do with that without spending a bunch of money to, and like, you're not gonna virtually stage the home necessarily, because it's just not really there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to show the house, you want to show that it has rooms, and I think things like plumbing and electricity and services, and if it's in a good school system, like, talk about that. Because so where I grew up in Minneapolis, and I would imagine you see this in San Diego as well, but there's a lot of older neighborhoods that are basically, my parents live in one that's like in a really good school system. They live in an old house from the 40s, but almost every other house on the street has been torn down and rebuilt and like doubled in size. And people are just taking these homes, and they're not bad homes, they're just smaller, and they're just tear it down, new house.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of Encintas.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of Encinitas, it's a lot of San Diego. You go to Claremont, you could do that all day because they're old houses, they're small little ramblers, and they're kind of cute, but they're not built that great, There's not good insulation, so it's like, I think you kind of sell it to a potential person, like, at least in my mind, that's going to tear it down and build their dream home. And so you want to, in my opinion, like, that's what I see. Do you agree or have any other inputs on that from your perspective?
Yeah, again, it kind of depends on price, per square foot, price per opportunity. Like, what is the, what are you getting the deal on the house for? What price point the house is in as well? Because like, if you're in that, let's say like for San Diego, $1.2 million price range, you have a big difference between, say, that like 1.8 to 1.1, like the difference in the quality of home that you're going to get. Now, I know that's a $700,000 price range difference, but you can have a neighborhood, take like UTC.
Right.
Phenomenal schools, great location, central to everything, and then you have a lot of 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s homes where they're just not as open concept, the flow isn't the same, the bedrooms are smaller, but you have the value in the neighborhood of like the remodeled houses are 1.8, 2 million, $2.5 million, but you can still get a house for, 1.2, maybe a little under, but it needs a lot of work. But also it's like, if you're looking at the median income of people in San Diego, most people who are buying a $1.2 million house, they're stretching to get to $1.2 million. And if they're stretching to get a fixer in a neighborhood, let's say like Encinitas, and you're going to 1.2 to 1.5 to stretch to get into that entry level detached single family home, they may not have the money to turn it into an architectural masterpiece.
100%.
So, I see a lot of times the neighborhoods that are being turned over like that are going to be more like 1.5 to 2.5. I know it's $1 million range, but that range where like you buy it at the bottom of the range, you put $500,000 or more into it, and then it gets you to that top of that range. And so that kind of narrows down the buyer pool of who's buying those homes.
Sure.
But also it kind of gives you that opportunity to, grow into it if you are just barely eking it out to get into it. And unfortunately, like what we see a lot of times is, the flipping companies who are taking advantage of little old ladies who bought the house in 1971 have no idea what the value of their home is. And they're like, oh my God, I got, $800,000 for my house. And it's like, ma'am, you could have got 1.3 for your house.
Might not even care.
Well, it's not that a lot of times it's not that they don't care, it's they don't know.
The kids might care.
Yes, and that's unfortunate where you're seeing, like, I understand there is a need in the market for flippers, developers, and getting a deal for a good price.
It's a tough competitive market space, I guess would be the risk. There's more than just agents out there bidding for these, homes, and granted, we need newer properties. We need more, homes and stuff like that. And land is a premium out here. Everything's pretty much at this point almost been built on. So, to get a single family home is you're buying old or you're buying something new, and you're spending a lot more money, and that's, Well,
let's kind of shift over to, say, like your ideal clientele, and kind of like one of the reasons why you're sitting in this room right now is like helping me come from, I'm not hiring you on every single video for podcasting or other stuff. Like, so what is something that someone who's like looking to get into, like hiring a professional to create more content for them? Let's kind of start with like, what are you seeing for your clients who are in that category? And then let's go tips and tricks of someone who can like utilize an iPhone and minimal things to start creating content.
So, I work with a number of people, some quite often and some, not a lot of one-offs to be honest, but usually if I start working with somebody and the shoe fits, we keep wearing it. So I've known you for a long time, probably from like the beginning of your real estate career, if I can recall, around the time you were starting. And I've been building my career about as long, so I have like a little bit of a brotherly thing with you of like, I want to make sure that I'm growing, but I also want to help my friends grow too, and we're good friends. So I like working with people that are, preferably in my current situation. I like working with repeat clients that have, enough work to keep me busy, and it's just the interactions are more matured, if that makes sense. Like once you work with somebody enough times, you kind of know the flow. Like, okay, I know your brand, I'm learning it. We're working on now getting past the introductions to like, how do we get it better? How do we make it better? So that being said, like I think finding somebody that you like, that's obviously your budget's really important wherever you're starting out. But finding somebody that is within your budget, and you might have very different people for different, property values. Right? So like your marketing budget might be less for the $1 million versus like the $5 million. So if you are trying to sell that architectural masterpiece, you maybe are hiring somebody else that does that specifically. And I just know for, there's guys I would recommend for the top tier stuff because that's all they do, and they're really, really good at it. But they are very expensive. And so they're not going to be your every guy for the smaller properties. It's just not there.
Yeah, you're not going to spend $20,000 on...
Right. So again, the budget thing is real. And we all know that in the industry. So it's like, we know how that you guys have a marketing budget that's, very much contingent on what you're going to make in commissions. So my prices, are kind of in a ballpark that can vary depending on the scope of the work, who I'm working with, and so budget. Finding someone you like to work with that brings out the best in you, that's available, regularly. And then building a team around that. Like maybe you've got a social media or a podcast guy that's lives down the street and he can do it for cheap. Or helps you set up a thing like we're trying to do today, trying to get the lighting dialed a little bit. So that could also be like a coach or what's the right word?
Mentor?
Not a mentor, consultant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So instead of having someone physically come in and film everything, if you are on a really tight budget or you want to do some more of your own content, which I think everyone should be doing, getting your video guy or somebody who can kind of walk you into that process, like, oh, here's like a new piece of gear, here's like, some guidelines for what you can do, like 15-second reels or and YouTube's got plenty of that information too, but if you have somebody locally that you can count on, that's a bonus. So we've got money, consistency, and like I said, just finding that person that like you want to work with. Like maybe their content's not like the freshest, coolest edits, or they've got the craziest camera gear. That only gets you so far if the person in front of the camera isn't comfortable. So you want to find someone that makes you feel yourself. Makes you feel empowered, and at the end of the day, you want to have fun with it.
Nice.
So that's kind of my recommendations for finding somebody you want to work with.
Any tips for beginners, and then closing thoughts?
Tips for beginners. Just do it. Just get your camera and take videos with your iPhone. You don't need, if you don't have a budget, and that would be my beginner thing. If you don't have a budget yet, like most likely you're an agent, you got a phone. And if you don't have a phone, you got something laying around the house. Just try and make some content. I mean, everyone's got a phone. What am I talking about? Buy a little $200 mic set, get a small light, or not. You can do stuff outside, but I would say the microphones are a big upgrade. Even if that's all you buy is a mic set like we've got on this iPhone right here, it's a game changer because audio is everything.
The audio quality of even from like that entry level 2 mic that I got off of Amazon for $20, like that helped just because of distance.
Well, we're far away from the camera, right? So those little microphones in the cameras
don't pick up, but then like going from the $25 to the $200 one, like there was a big difference in that jump too. And again, it's like I use this at every single video, so if you like divide that out, like what the girl math, I use this purse every single day, so it's $1 a day, you know. Like so
well, and we've been doing professional YouTube videos for years now, and there is a very there's very much a need for that as well.
Yeah.
But these iPhones, they just get better and better every year, and it's just insane what you can do with them. So I wouldn't shy away from using your phone to even create your own walkthrough videos. You know, yeah, they might not be as good as the professionals.
Yeah.
But
there's still something.
Content's better than no content. So putting anything out there consistently, you're going to get better and learn on it. If you don't want to do it, well, then you hire somebody to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and but even then, I think it's really important. The realization, I was talking with my buddy David, who I work with at Video Sales Real Estate. We film a lot of properties, and as in the last year or two, we've been pushing a lot more into like these social kind of real, he calls them real parties, where he'll go out and film a team, you know, either at a caravan or an open house or, you know, kind of a branded content thing, like to do lifestyle, to tell more of the story of the agent behind the scenes, as opposed to just these scripted, beautiful, cinematic masterpieces. It's like, how do we bring it to the Instagram, you know, TikTok world, where it's a little more, it's shot on the iPhone, it's viewed on the iPhone, it's very relatable, and that's been a huge, you know, success. Agents love it, and we usually add it on to like a YouTube day. So we'll do, you know, this beautiful video, but then we'll shoot some content on the iPhone as well. We'll use these little mics, so the sound is good, and it's, you know, it's just a no-brainer at this point. And yeah, as far as beginners, beyond that, once you do have a budget and you really want to like elevate your brand for the long term, I think, you know, hiring people that you trust and are, you know, in alignment with your vision, you gotta build your team out. So.
And it comes out so much better from even just my own personal experience of like doing a lot of stuff on my phone, but then hiring someone who's editing it. You know, because like, yes, you've been editing my like property tours and stuff like that, but now someone is editing anything and everything I film on my camera now goes to somebody to edit.
Yeah, and that's, you gotta have a team.
I'm just not good at it. And I like, and when you see a professional do it compared to what I was doing, like A, they get it back to me so much faster, and B, like that's not my highest and best use of time.
Yeah, exactly. What's your time worth?
Yeah.
And what do you want to be doing? As you're starting out as an agent, you're a one-man band, maybe.
Yeah.
And eventually, like you said in the podcast, it's like, oh, I did that, and now I got 700 people on my team or something. That's a pretty big jump, but a lot of consistency and a lot of, you know, realizing that you can only get so far on your own.
Yeah.
There's only so many things you can do in a day. You know, I feel that pressure myself as a you know, solo shooter, but I really enjoy when I'm working with teams and I'm not, you know, I'm the shooter, someone else is the editor, someone else is the producer.
Yeah.
We can get bigger things done quicker, and then we can turn it over quicker to the client, which makes them want to hire us again.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways, right? Like, and so I think that's important to kind of like find your people for the things you're doing. So if you've got a property video guy, you know, a lot of times I can do videos or photos, but agents, for some reason, besides you, they'll either hire me for the photos or they'll hire me for the video. They won't hire me for both, typically. I have a lot of agents I've shot video with, and they're like, you do photos? And I'm like, how did you not know this? So it's funny in my world because I'm a hybrid shooter, and yet a lot of people know me as one or the other.
Interesting.
And maybe that's a branding thing I could work on a little bit, but
it's definitely a communication issue. But I think it is just for me personally of like convenience, and like if you and I are going out there, why would I only go there to do one activity? Like if I'm at the house, and if we have to spend 3-4 hours there, I'd rather get everything done. Because you know, my process is while you're taking photos of the house, I'm doing my agent visual inspection disclosures. So it's like I'm measuring the house, I'm taking like my photos and writing down notes and doing all those things so that gets done ahead of time, and by the time you're done with that, I'm done with my thing, and then we switch over to video or vice versa. Yeah,
we're definitely lean and mean when we get it done, but you have vision too. You're like, I need this short video, this style, I need property photos, and I need some headshots. And so we have a little machine that works pretty well. If that property, say, was much bigger, we were shooting a house in Rancho Santa Fe, it'd be a lot tougher.
Yeah. We would get more people, the budget would grow.
It would have to, right?
It has to,
So you can do this kind of all in one day with one person when it's a smaller property, you know, a small apartment, small single level, single family home. But yeah, when you know, as the scope grows, so does, you know.
But it goes right along with your advice and this tips of like starting out and going is like, you know, it's going to continue to grow in your budget. And like, yeah, you may not have sold a bunch of Rancho Santa Fe homes before, but hopefully you've saved enough money to have the budget because you got the listing. You're going to need to spend the money anyways.
But if your goal is to say, I live, you know, in San Diego and I want to sell homes in Rancho Santa Fe. Okay, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
What are the steps I'm going to do to do that? How am I going to communicate that? Well, you're going to go to events in Rancho Santa Fe and you're going to meet people and you're going to promote the lifestyle and you're going to, maybe even if you don't live in Rancho Santa Fe, but you work in Rancho Santa Fe, like show that. Be like, I'm here today, I'm checking out this property.
Yeah.
Or I'm at this shop or this event, or sell it.
Yeah. Spend the time, be there.
If you consistently message that for enough time, you're going to get people to be like, oh, he's a Rancho Santa Fe expert. Like, of course I'm going to buy from him.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't communicate that, you know, and you don't have the old school like history, you know, of 30 years of doing it, and there's plenty of people in that world out there that are just living on, you know, kind of the conversations and referrals.
Yeah.
That's a powerful piece of marketing. But if you're trying to break in, especially in this day and age, like, why not use video and photo to tell that story and really market that through YouTube? I mean, you can get people, you got enough videos about Rancho Santa Fe and you're clicking through on the Google AdWords and you come up, like someone in New York City wants to move there,
eventually
they're going to find you and they're going to look at your content and be like, okay, that's my guy. Even if you're never sold a home in Rancho Santa Fe.
All right, Colin, to respect your time, let's get out of here. We're going to put your contact information below, but what's the best way to contact you?
So Instagram, it's just my name, Colin Leibold, ColinLeibold. That's probably the best way to find me on the daily. Yep. I have
everything else will
a website is leiboldmedia.com. I don't run a social page for that. It's just a lot of work to run even one. So I'd rather go surfing most of the time if I'm not working. But yeah, man.
Sweet. Well, thank you for the conversation, and we'll keep you going.